Two preseason games in the books for the 76ers. Unfortunately, two losses in Abu Dhabi, both to the New York Knicks. We're going to react to both of those losses here on today's 76ers Now. I am Jake Chipper. Like I always say for the preseason, it's not so much about the results of the games as it is how the players actually look, how some players are individually performing, especially some of the new guys, and as we get used to new lineups on this 76ers team. So we'll dive into what I saw in each of these first two preseason games for the Sixers. But before we do, and not all of you are going to be big Philadelphia Phillies fans that watch this channel, but I'm sure a good amount of you are, including myself. And obviously, it was a disappointing weekend in Philadelphia sports. Phillies choking away Game 1 on Saturday against the Dodgers, and the Eagles choking away that game on Sunday against the Broncos. But Game 2 is tonight for the Phillies. I know a lot of us aren't very confident, but this is a must-win for the Phillies after a great season. I'm pulling for them. If you're with me, if you are a Phillies fan, you want to see them take down the Dodgers, or if you just hate the Dodgers in general, like a lot of people do, type Go Phils down below in the comment section. Let's go for a Game 2 W for the Fightin' Phils. So the Sixers use the same starting lineup in each of their two preseason games against the Knicks over there in Abu Dhabi. It was Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Kelly Oubre, Dominic Barlow, and Adam Bona. Of course, not going to be the starting lineup they use come the start of the regular season. A lot of guys that did not play in those first couple of games for Philly. Of course, Joel Embiid, Paul George, as they manage each of their injuries. Doubt we see any of them in preseason, and really haven't done a whole lot in training camp, especially for Paul George. Obviously, Jared McCain suffering that UCL injury in his thumb. He's going to miss some time to start the regular season, so of course we will not see him in this preseason. Quentin Grimes did not travel with the team as he was dealing with his contract situation. Of course, he is now signed on the qualifying offer. We'll see if he does get some run in the preseason. I imagine they probably want to get him at least a little bit out there before the start of the regular season. And then Trendon Watford has been dealing with a hamstring injury. Held him out these first couple of games. I do think he should be back. The Sixers' next preseason game isn't until Friday because they are traveling back from Abu Dhabi. They get a little bit of rest before they play the Magic on Friday, and the Timberwolves a little bit after that to round out the preseason. I do imagine Grimes, Watford, we at least see one of these two before the end of the preseason. Now let's start with some good news here, because there's some good, there's some bad that I can take away from this preseason. And you always don't want to overreact too much to what you see in the preseason, so take all of this with a little bit of a grain of salt, but these are my observations, and this is what I saw. I thought Tyrese Maxey looked really, really good in each of those first two games against the Knicks. You know, the numbers might not look tremendous in terms of his shooting percentages, and a lot of guys did not shoot well in these first two games on this Sixers team. We will get to that, but I thought he looked very, very comfortable. I thought his decision-making was much improved from last season. As that true lead guard, he continues to take steps as that true primary play initiator and primary point guard, and he just looked like a guy who was better than almost anybody out there on the floor against a very, very talented Knicks team. Now, he did struggle a little bit guarding Jalen Brunson, especially in that second game, and again, he didn't really hit a whole lot of the shots, but watching him play and not just looking at the box score, he looked very much in control, very much setting the tempo of the game, and I was very impressed by what I saw to start out the preseason. Maxey said he's got to be a lot more of a leader, especially heading into this season, and look, the Sixers really do need Maxey to be that true number one option. If they want to go where they want to go, especially if Embiid and Paul George are going to be injured for much of the year, if Maxey can take that leap from like all-star level player to all-NBA true number one option, the sky's the limit for Philadelphia. He's, been really good in last year, a little bit disappointing, but if he can continue to take these strides and be that true number one, be a huge development for Philadelphia, like what I saw early on from Tyrese Maxey. And then his backcourt mate, third overall pick, of course, the rookie VJ Edgecombe. Again, another guy that didn't shoot the ball very well, and the numbers don't look great, but you can really see the signs with VJ Edgecombe. Made some very, very impressive plays athletically, some chase down blocks, some awesome dunks, including an almost absolute crazy poster on, I believe it was Mitchell Robinson, that he just barely missed. You really do see the signs there. Now, again, similar to what we saw in the Summer League, like the shooting percentages simply were not great. 32 from the field, 20% from three. It's, from a numbers perspective, not ideally what you'd like to see, but of course it is just the preseason. But same that I said with Tyrese Maxey, watching him out there, he didn't really look like a rookie, right? He seemed, similar to Maxey again, to play with the right kind of pace. He seemed adjusted to the speed of the NBA game, even if it was just preseason. The Knicks are playing pretty much all of their starters, especially in that second game. And just impressed by the way he was able to make decisions, handle the ball as a primary point guard. He did a lot of that when Tyrese Maxey was not on the floor, and he got some pretty significant run as well. Look, VJ is going to play a pretty big role out of the gates. I think an even bigger role than a lot of us thought because of the Jared McCain injury and Quentin Grimes, waiting this long to sign his deal. There's a chance he starts out of the gates, and that was shown because towards the end of these preseason games, he was completely taken out along with a lot of the other starters. So I like what I see. Does he have stuff to work on? Obviously. He is small out there. There were times, he's getting bullied, not quite as physical as you'd like him to be, and the finishing is a little bit of a concern. He can get to the basket, but similar to this was a concern for him at Baylor, not the best finisher once he does get in there. If he's not dunking the ball, and of course a three-point shot has to come along, but just from him looking comfortable, looking like he belongs, and being a tremendous athlete, it's good signs. I like what I saw there from VJ Edgecombe. And then a couple of the new guys. This is really, really promising because both Dominic Barlow and Jabari Walker, who are both on two-way deals with the Sixers. Remember, Philadelphia has one open roster spot, so I imagine Barlow and Walker are really going to be fighting for that last roster spot as we head into the first couple of months of the season. They both looked good in these preseason games and kind of showed what each of them can bring in helping the Sixers in very crucial areas. Barlow, big guy, like 6'9", 6'10", but little like longer, lankier, but an athletic dude who knocked down a couple of threes in the preseason. Was the Sixers' leading rebounder, I believe, in both of those two games. Grabbed 12 boards over those two games. And, that's a big problem area for the Sixers to have somebody with size, who's athletic, who can play that four. I could see Barlow, he looked like he is a real NBA player, right? And that's what you want to see out of these two-way guys. Same can be said about Jabari Walker, who I think should have gotten a standard NBA contract from somebody. He did not. He's another guy who, not quite the size or athleticism that Barlow has, but he plays his ass off. He is a tremendous rebounder. He needs to get that three-point shot to fall down. The Sixers have experimented using him as a player who can bring the ball up the floor and create a little bit and initiate, which is very interesting with a player like Walker at about 6'8", a little stockier than someone like Barlow, but two guys who can play that four spot for Philly that looked like they belong against a pretty talented New York Knicks team. So love to see that out of two of your, not huge free agency additions, pretty under the radar, but two guys that can make an impact on this team. We'll see which one of these guys ends up getting a real roster spot. That's really all the good that I saw in the preseason. We're going to get to the bad here in just a moment, both with the team overall and some individual performances that I thought were a little bit disappointing. But let me know down in the comment section, who has impressed you the most so far? Is it Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, one of the new guys, somebody I did not mention? You let me know that you know ball, and comment a name down there in the comment section. As I mentioned, we're going to get to some of the negatives from these first couple of preseason games. But before we do, I want to give a big shout out to today's presenting sponsor, and that is PrizePicks. Look, you and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football and soon basketball season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. It's super simple to play. All you do is pick more or less on at least two player stats, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in big time. One of the reasons I love PrizePicks is some of their awesome features, and they have a couple new awesome features that they are rolling out here. PrizePicks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. So if you want to pick more on Jalen Hurts' pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns, you can do that. And you can follow other PrizePicks players directly on the app, copy their lineups in one click, whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or even me, whose picks you like. Hit the follow button, check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on PrizePicks. As I mentioned earlier off the top, big game, game 2 here for the Philadelphia Phillies going up against the LA Dodgers. This is my 3-pick power play I'm rocking with here tonight. Blake Snell, starting pitcher for the Dodgers, less than 37.5 pitcher fantasy score. And then I'm riding with the guys. I know the top of the Phillies lineup was not very good in game 1. I think they bounce back in game 2. Give me the more Bryce Harper, half an RBI, and the more on Kyle Schwarber, 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So let's get to some of the negatives here that I saw in these preseason games. I want you to think about this for a second, right? What were the 2 biggest issues the Sixers faced, apart from injuries? I'm talking about on-court issues Two biggest on-court issues the Sixers faced last season. I'll give you a second. Think about it. To me, it's pretty obvious. It was rebounding. It was three-point shooting. The Sixers were near the bottom of the league in both of those categories last season, and I know it's just 2 preseason games, and I want to stress that you can't overreact entirely, but both of those issues popped up again for Philadelphia against the New York Knicks. In these 2 games combined, the Sixers were a minus 14 on the glass against the Knicks, and Mitchell Robinson was going crazy against them on the offensive glass. It's a problem for the Sixers. They're small. Obviously, no Embiid out there, but Embiid doesn't completely help this issue either. Mitchell Robinson, he's, again, one of the best rebounders in the game, especially on the offensive glass. So it's to be expected that he does this type of thing, but 8 offensive rebounds in 2 games, including 5 in game 1, where the Sixers really got dominated in game 1 on the glass. They were out-rebounded by 12 by the Knicks. Got a little bit better in game 2, but still seemed to be an issue for the Sixers here. And look, you cannot be a poor rebounding team, especially if you're not going to shoot the ball well, which we'll get to in a second. The Sixers are generally smaller. Adam Bowen is a smaller center. You hope Drummond can maybe come back and fix this issue, but Embiid, with his injuries, could he be a great rebounder anymore? I don't really think so. They're a smaller team. They're relying on some guys that are smaller in stature to play with more energy and effort to get these rebounds, but it was an issue last year, a really big one, an issue again here in the preseason. The other major issue that I mentioned, 3-point shooting. The Sixers were an awful 3-point shooting team last year, right? And obviously you have guys in and out of the rotation, no consistency. Tyrese Maxey didn't shoot well from 3 last year. It's going to be rough, right? But the Sixers, in their first preseason game, again, it's preseason, a lot of teams aren't shooting well, but they went 3 of 35 from 3 versus the Knicks last Thursday. And it didn't get much better on Saturday either. It was a little bit better. That is like 8% from 3. That is horrendous. A lot of guys not shooting the ball well. And again, a big problem last year. Might be a big problem again this year. Now, you didn't have Jared McCain out there. You didn't have Quentin Grimes out there. Paul George, Joel Embiid, all good 3-point shooters. I get it. But you're going to be relying on a lot of these other guys that couldn't make shots in this game to make shots in the regular season. And they simply didn't do that in these first couple of games. And look, I know it's preseason. I wouldn't put too much stock into this list right here, but I thought this was absolutely hilarious. When you look at the worst 3-point percentage in the preseason thus far, a lot of teams have played either no games yet or just 1 game. Sixers and Knicks have played 2, so it's a very small sample size. Again, don't read into this too much. The Sixers are only shooting better from 3 than 2 international teams. There's an international team that's shooting better than the Sixers in this preseason. Far and away, it's been a horrible shooting performance in these first couple of games. Obviously, the Knicks weren't all that much better. Having to travel all the way to Abu Dhabi, obviously, can mess with your routine, mess with your body, and it's a whole different environment. I get it. But just not a great sign from a lot of these guys that they could not knock down shots in the preseason. Let's get to some individual performances and players that I didn't love what I saw from. Justin Edwards really, really struggled in these first couple of games against the Knicks. And look, struggling to start the preseason. He struggled as well in the summer league after a really good back half of the year last year from the former undrafted free agent who the Sixers gave a contract extension to. It's a little bit worrisome when you combine the summer league struggles and then his struggles here against the Knicks in these 2 games, playing about 20 minutes a night, 2 points, 6 rebounds. And this is not a typo, folks. He shot 6% from the field and 9% from 3 across these 2 games. So it's just not great signs this offseason from a player in Edwards who you're hoping can really take that next step in year 2 and be a mainstay in this Sixers rotation. Am I writing him off? By no means, right? Again, preseason, 2 games, plenty more time for him to figure things out. He's the type of player who I think would thrive better with better players on the floor, plays well off the catch and shoot, and play off these other stars on this Sixers roster. But look, he was getting some decent looks, some catch and shoot looks, attacking the basket. He's going to have to knock down those open catch and shoot threes. If he's not, you hope defensively he can still make an impact, and he was fine on that end of the floor, I thought, defensively. But those offensive numbers, obviously they're going to get better than that. Just not good signs, though, with the summer league struggles and other struggles here in these first couple preseason matchups. And then Adam Bona, who, look, he had a pretty awesome run in Eurobasket for Turkey as they reached the championship game, eventually losing to Dennis Schroeder and Germany, and thought he looked really good in that experience. And he said, and Tyrese Maxey said that Eurobasket time really did help Adam Bona. But when you think about him last year, right? Super athletic, a little bit undersized, 6'8", 6'9" at the center spot, but a physical freak, right? He can jump out of the gym, a great shot blocker. His biggest issue, though, as good of a defender as he is the foul game, right? He does foul a little bit more than you would like, because then he can't stay on the floor, right? If he can't stay on the floor, he can't make an impact defensively. He had some early fouls in both of these games, picked up 4 quick ones in the first game on Thursday, and then picked up 2 quick ones in the second game. Now was able to kind of flush that off in the second game, came back after a stint on the bench, and didn't pick up any more fouls the rest of the night. But a development to continue watching, because I like Adembona a lot. I think he should be this team's main backup center behind Embiid and even start when Embiid is not healthy. But he's got to clean up the fouls and continue growing that offensive game. If he's not out there, he can't make the defensive impact that we all know he can. Final little note here, as it kind of relates to Adembona and this center rotation, and back to the rebounding issue that we described earlier. One of the players you hope would really help to fix this issue that didn't play a whole lot last year because of injury and he wasn't all that good, Andre Drummond. Now, coming into the preseason, into training camp, Nick Nurse said Drummond looked a lot better, and he actually dropped about 20 pounds from last year. And, you know, coaches say that. We're always skeptical, especially because they always say that about Embiid, and it doesn't always turn out to be the case. But Drummond does look healthy. He does look more spry. You can see he has lost some weight. That's a really good sign. Again, the Sixers need all the center depth they can get with the injury concerns with Embiid and with the rebounding issues. And Drummond, one of the best rebounders of our generation, past his prime now, of course, but still someone that can help in that regard, even knocked down a 3 in the preseason. So good to see him healthy. Hopefully he can have a bounce back year. I've been saying they should trade him because of what I saw last season. Hopefully he can prove me wrong and make an impact on the Sixers team this upcoming season. Those are some of my pros, some of my concerns as well from these couple of preseason games. I asked you earlier who impressed you the most. Now I want to know what your biggest concern is from these first 2 preseason games. Again, it doesn't have to be a huge concern. It is just the preseason at the end of the day. But let me know. Is it the rebounding, the three-point shooting? Is it a certain player? Is it the coaching staff? Maybe you let me know your biggest concern down in the comments section. And that'll do it for today's show. As I mentioned earlier, the Sixers' next preseason game will be on Friday against the Orlando Magic. Then another one against the Timberwolves. And regular season, man, here in just a couple of weeks, they tip off the 22nd and 23rd of October, sitting here on October 6th. So it's going to be here before you know it. Stay up to date with everything going on with the Philadelphia 76ers. Hit that sub button, turn on notifications, and we'll see you next time right here on 76ers Now.